And as people join us, we'll go through. So, you're held accountable for 9 option strategies. Usually when I teach options, this is a series of 4 lectures. The first lecture in the series is Introduction to Option Contracts. And you can find that as both a replay as well as, tutoring. Some people don't like to come to class. I think you guys are smart shoppers. This is $35, which is, a little better deal than $225 an hour. But you can find that first lecture as both a replay for tutoring as well as a replay of the class. The second lecture in the series, and that's where we're at tonight, is basic option positions. And we're going to be looking at this evening is break-even. Break-even is kind of a pivot to answering a question. We're going to look at max gain, max loss. And then I want to show you some test phraseology. Because what they like to do sometimes is they like to say several weeks later with the stock trading at. And so we want to get comfortable with some of that phraseology as well. And then I want to show you some phraseology like expiration, right? So be careful what you're being asked. There's a difference between being asked about the Apple contract and being asked about the player. So that's a little different. Now, after this lecture, this is lecture 2, as I told you, in a series of 4. The third lecture is stock plus options. And again, I'll have that on the schedule, and you can go ahead and book that, or you can watch a previous class as a replay. Every class is a little different. I like the group setting because maybe there's a question you didn't think of and somebody else thinks of it, and feel free to unmute and, ask away. And then the fourth lecture, now, if you're an SIE person, you don't need to go into the fourth lecture. And if you're an SIE test taker, be careful you don't overdose on options as it relates to making your mark. There's only 3 or 4 option questions. Most of them are recognition, and most of those questions' answers can be found in the first lecture in the series, Introduction to Option Contracts, like when do options expire, when do they settle, that kind of thing. How does the OCC assign exercise notices? That's mostly the SIE. There are strategy questions. There's 1 strategy question or 2 max. And so I still think if you're going on to 7 after that, maybe overlearn it to make a sweat equity investment, as you come into your 7. Now, the 7, the fourth lecture is important, and that's advanced option strategies. That's spreads and straddles. And unlike other things on your Series 7, options is one of the only few things that kind of builds. And what I mean by that is, if you don't know what a long call is, you're going to have no idea what a debit call spread is. Right. The other things, if you don't know them, who cares? Because within 2 minutes, there'll be something different that doesn't depend on your previous understanding. And that is not options. That's why I always say inch by inch, options are a cinch. Yard by yard, options are hard. It looks like Dean needs to. Test question. Apple has a very high beta. And that means it's very volatile with the market. Very volatile with the market, right? So flies all over the place, right? All right, well, let's get started in the first of our 4 basic option strategies. Your customer goes long 1 Apple December 225 call at 9 when Apple is at 227. First point, it doesn't matter where Apple's at when we do a trade. What matters is where is Apple at several weeks later, at expiration, whatever the case may be. I like to, and what Dean likes to do isn't testable, but what I like to do sometimes just to get my bearing straight is say, okay, well, I'm looking at a 225 call, and Apple today is 227. I like to think about options as being about floors and ceilings. All right, so floor and ceiling. What I mean by floor is if this Apple call of Apple, the strike price of Apple doesn't change, but the market price certainly does. And below 225, the contract has no intrinsic value. And for those of you who maybe didn't watch the first lecture or haven't laid the base information, the premium that you pay or receive, the premium that we're looking at here is 9. And the payment you pay or receive consists of 2 things, the intrinsic value and the time value. Right? So this 225 call contract with Apple at 227 has 2 points of intrinsic value and 7 points of time value. Time value is going to erode. It's going to, go bye-bye. But that's how that stands today. Now, there's another way they could have said this on the test. Instead of saying your customer goes long, one Apple December 225 call at 9 when Apple's at 227, they could have said your customer buys one Apple December 225 call at 9. They could have said your customer is the holder of one Apple December 225 call at 9. They could have said your customer did an opening purchase of one Apple December 225 call at 9. What will they say on your exam? Whatever you're not prepared for. Now, the one thing they're not going to say, and this is part of what I call the setup, is when I get an option position, please note I haven't even told you what the question is. It doesn't matter in terms of the setup. What I like to do is say, okay, what am I looking at? I'm looking at a choice to buy the stock at the strike price. That's what I'm looking at. And I like to just put that there underneath the leg. That's not testable, but we call that an option leg, right? The technical name for that is a series. All right, so I think the first way we want to attack is by figuring out our break even. You don't do things to break even, but break even is a push. You neither win nor you lose. And to make money here or to break even, we've got to be able to cover our out-of-pocket cost. And so what I like to do is think, okay, well, I paid out 9 points. I paid out 9 points. And so 234 strike price plus premium. Now let's just make that a little bigger. That deserves to have a bigger font there. Is 234. Now you can memorize break evens. I would warn you, if you go to memorize things, first point, you don't have to memorize a whole lot. Call up, put down. Call up, put down. But that being said, it would be better perhaps if you understood things. And so if I really wanted to teach you options, I'd make you buy one. And once you were out of pocket, you'd figure out pretty quickly how this game works. I say, listen, you got to be able to turn that premium that you paid from time value to intrinsic value. To be a winner in an option, you got to be right about 3 things. Direction, here you're choosing up. You wouldn't establish the choice to buy the stock unless you thought the stock was going up. So this is a bullish transaction. And so we're out of pocket 234. And so we're going to need this to be something more than 234. And then I'm going to illustrate that to you in just a sec in terms of break even. Let me get my boom. And remember, the mnemonic for this is call up, call up, call up. I'm going to show this to you at length in just a little bit. Looks like Dean makes a blockhead instead of a, a happy face. All right, but boom, here's our break even, 234 below here. We're going to be unhappy. Because even if this goes up, and I'm going to show this to you in just a minute, we're going to have a problem. So the first test question, they might say, your customer goes long, one Apple, December 225 call at 9. What is the break even? And remember, they might say when Apple is at 229. Now, there's lots of ways to do options. Lots of ways to do options. And if you're following Dean, I like to make a T. And what I'm showing you now is I'm just illustrating that indeed this is the break even. We haven't done max gain yet. We haven't done max loss. We haven't had several weeks later it's trading at or expiration. But what we're trying to illustrate here is how important it is to do a setup. And so now I'm simply illustrating that if we pay 9 points, that's dollars out. Now you can use a minus sign, you can use a debit, you can do dollars out, whatever you'd like. I personally like to use dollars out. And you want to have a method, because if you have a method, then you can kind of catch yourself if something goes, astray. And so I like to use dollars out, dollars in. Another suggestion, it's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. But I'm not a big fan of putting $900 in there, right? Because if you put $900 in there, then you got to put 225, 22,500, and I just think it's a mess. And break evens are expressed on a per share basis. So here, if I pay 225 for the stock, which I'm entitled to do, I'd be out 234. And so I'm just illustrating that indeed that is the break even. Now, the reason I like the T so much is because if you get good at the T, you can shop your answer set on the test. And you know that it's got to be a number that if you plug it in would make the columns balance, because that's what break even is. It's the same dollars out as dollars in, right? Boom. Nobody does things to break even. Nobody does things to break even. We do things to make money. Okay, so any questions about the 234? Now, if you memorize break evens, the neat thing, I'm going to show this to you using a T, but if you get good at the break even, you can determine this is bullish, then you can simply go to the end of the question. If it wasn't break even and they tell me the stock's at 230, I know I'm a loser. And if they tell me the stock is 240, I know I'm a winner. So that's kind of a nice pivot point to have that break even and then know where you want it in relationship, the stock, the market price of the stock to the strike price of the option. Now, why would you buy this option in the first place? Why would you buy the options in the first place? Well, to buy 100 shares of Apple at 227, because that's the market price, would cost you $22,700. And don't tell anybody, but maybe Dean doesn't have $22,700. But a lot more people have $900. So as little as $900, you can control thousands of dollars worth of stock. P.S. If you buy 100 shares of Apple for $22,700, your loss is $22,700. The floor is zero. You can lose a lot more money. Here, the floor is 225. The worst case is you lose your $900. So it's very easy to qualify somebody who wants to trade options. All right, let me illustrate again to you the break even in long calls. So here is our break even once again. And let me fix that. It's strike price plus premium. We have a great mnemonic for break evens, call up and put down. Those mnemonics are great for a lot of things. I always joke, if you only remember one thing about options, remember call up, put down. Call up is a great mnemonic for intrinsic value. If the market price of the stock, 227, is greater than the strike price of the call, 225, the contract has intrinsic value. Call up is great for break evens. Call up. The break even in calls is strike price plus premium. 225 plus 9, 234. So a great memory aid device. Again, what I'm doing here is just illustrating that indeed, once again, if we track the money in and out of the customer account, right, we paid 9 points for the choice to buy the stock, right? I got a joke, you guys are long a basic options class. You did an opening purchase of $35. Dean is short the options class, right? I did an opening sale. I brought money in. My brother just called me. He goes, "What are you doing?" I said, I got to teach a class here for about an hour or so. So, have to wait on our adult beverage. Right? So, and if we buy the stock at 225, that's what we're out of pocket, right? I always used to joke with my baby brokers, I said, "Listen, you're going to trade options for me. I'm going to make you write 1,000 times. Options are a wasting asset. Time value erodes. At expiration, the option is only worth its intrinsic value. If it has no intrinsic value, the contract will expire worthless. In other words, it makes no economic sense to buy this at 225 if Apple's 224. If it has intrinsic value, it'll be exercised, if not, expire worthless. And then I would tease them and say, listen, I want you to right now go online and buy an Apple 225 call for 9, and you'll learn very quickly how this game is played. Right? I think the easiest way to learn it is to throw you into the water. Say, swim. You say, well, I can't swim. I say, well, uh-oh. So again, if you get good at the setup, then you can kind of look at this and say, okay, I need a number that's going to make the columns balance. Right? I'm just illustrating that indeed, if we did buy the stock at 224.5 Apple, and we were able to sell it at 234, we would break even. As I said, nobody does things to break even. People do things to make money. Long calls are pretty cool. Because I said that the max gain is unlimited, just like the stock. The max gain is unlimited. Because once we go past the 234, we start to make money. And how far past 234 could Apple go? There's a finite supply of Apple. There's potential infinite demand. So I say, how with as little, Sam, as $900, would you like to control $22,000 worth of Apple stock? How with limited loss would you like unlimited reward? How with limited loss would you like unlimited reward? Okay, so there's a couple ways to do this. Again, we want to practice our test phraseology. A customer goes long one Apple, December 225 call at 9. When Apple's 227. Do we care about where Apple's at when we do this trade? No. Then they either say, at expiration, Apple is. Now, listen, on a bad draw, I'm wishing for you a dream draw. Everything you studied shows up. I don't know what the big deal is. But every once in a while you get a face of death draw. And a face of death draw, you're like, oh my God. And so I say at expiration, Apple is. I'm under no obligation on the test to tell you what happens to this Apple 225 call if I tell you its expiration. Because you should be able to figure that out, is my point. Right? And now we're looking at the gain potential. So the test isn't going to tell you this is a profitable situation. You're going to have to figure this out. Remember, we already have our 234. We already have our bullish. All right. So your customer goes long, buys, owner, holder, opening purchase, long one Apple, December 225, call it 9. I always like to say, okay, I have a choice to buy the Apple at 225. And they say at expiration, Apple is 243. At expiration, Apple is 243. So are we going to be a happy camper or an unhappy camper if at expiration we own an Apple 225 call and at expiration Apple's 243? We're going to be happy, right? I mean, because we were right about all three things. We were right about direction. We said Apple was going up. We said Apple was going at least up 9 points to cover our out-of-pocket cost. And at 243, life is good. Life is good, right? And so now we should know what's going to happen. What I mean by that is now I say on the test, the Apple's 243, we should know that the contract's going to get exercised. By the way, even if you forget, I'm your broker. I said, what the hell happened to Ethan, man? He's got this Apple 225 call. It's the third Friday in December. I haven't heard from him. I would assume, Ethan, you would want me to exercise that for you. Right? If he gets mad, what am I going to say? Why are you upset? Ethan, in the OCC disclosure document, my friend, we told you that if we didn't hear from you and your contract had intrinsic value, we assume you would want us to exercise. We have limited discretion to go ahead and do this for you. Now, we haven't done the short side yet, but every once in a while you get a customer who's short and says, well, maybe Ethan will forget me. I go, no, he will not forget you, because if you're short, his broker is going to do what for him? Automatically exercise. Okay, so he exercises. The stock is 243. Woohoo! And you would tell me on the test that he made 9 points, right? He made 9 points. Whether you want to compare that to his break even at 234, or when you want to net the columns, if you're using a T, I'm a big fan of a T, but however you go about getting this done. And then, by the way, I'm not being facetious. My arithmetic skills are terrible. So, if they offer me a calculator, I'm going to say, thank you so much. Right? I'm going to say, hey, you know what? Thanks. They give us a simple function one, 243 minus 234, boom. All right, so we're going to do the same intellectual question. The same intellectual question. Before I do, though, could it have been better? Could it have been better than 243? Yeah. Right? There's a finite supply of Apple stock. Potential infinite demand. I mean, right now, Apple's a $3 trillion market cap company. But it could be a $4 trillion market cap company, right? If there's more buyers than sellers, it's going to go up, right? So it's unlimited gain. All right, so now I want to do the same intellectual question. I think a good memory aid device is T. T. What can happen to an option contract? These questions, these time clock questions, will either end with the option contract was traded. That's the T. The option contract was exercised. We just looked at that. Or the option contract expires. Now, I'm going to show you a scenario now where we're going to trade the option. Right? And so that's something that can happen. And I'm going to do that test phraseology. And then we're going to talk about what happens if it expires. So let's do this one. Again, they could say, your customer does an opening purchase. That's testable, by the way. Opening purchase means you're establishing or adding to a long position. So, we could say buyer, owner, holder, long. I told you the big thing I want you to get to when you hear the word buyer, owner, holder, long is that the customer has a choice of some sort. Because that's what options are, right? They're choices. You either have a choice to call the stock away, or you have a choice to sell the stock, depending on the type of contract it is. So your client does an opening purchase of one Apple, December 225, call at 9, when Apple's 227. Do we care where Apple's at when we buy the option or sell the option? We do not. In the real world, we might. But on the test, we don't. We care about the phraseology follows. This time I say several weeks later, Apple's at 243, and he closes out for intrinsic value. What they're trying to do on the test is avoid saying, you bought it for 9 and you sold it for 18. They're making it work. Now, in the real world, there would still be some time value as well. Okay, so now we're illustrating again that we're going to make some money. And again, you can just simply memorize the break even of 234 and say, okay, I have a choice to buy the stock. I'm bullish. And so I know I'm a winner here. By the way, if you can just do that, but you got a 50-50 chance on the test. Because in the test, there's typically 2 choices that say profit and 2 choices that say loss or gain or loss. And so that gives you a 50-50 even right there. All right, so we did our opening purchase. Let's just put that there. Boom. And that's going to be money out. So how do we offset test question? how do we offset when we trade an option? So again, several weeks later, we close out at intrinsic value. That is a closing sale. You know, by the way, they could use that phraseology. They could say your customer, instead of closes out or offsets, they could say closing sale, whatever the case may be. Right now, be careful what you're being asked. You know what I mean by that is, you know, one of my mantras is RTFQ. Make sure you read the full question. If I ask you what is the intrinsic value of a 225 put with Apple at 225, that answer is 18 points. That's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you if you close it out for the intrinsic value, what is the gain or the loss? P.S. by the way, if I said it's 230 and we close it out intrinsic value, we're going to be a loser, right? Because we need to have something above 234. And so now I say you close it out at intrinsic value. And the intrinsic value of a 225 call contract with the stock at 243 is 18 points, right? If we go back, right, and I say, here's where we're at. Boom. There's our break even at 234. And here's the stock at 243. And so I said, just be careful about whether I'm asking you about the relationship of this to that or this to that. Those are different questions, right? If I ask you, what is the intrinsic value of a 225 call with the stock at 243, that's 18. If I ask you, what is the gain or the loss, I'm asking you now to kind of net those numbers. And that's a different question. That's a different question, right? All right, so here we are. Boom, boom, boom. Hey, if you bought the Apple stock, at 227, because that's what Apple's trading at today, and you sold the Apple stock at 243, you'd be a winner. 243 minus 227, you would have made 16 points. You know, here we only made 9 points. Anybody know what the distinction is? So the person who bought, your customer who bought one Apple December 225 call at 9, when Apple is at 243, made 9 points. And the guy who bought the Apple at 227 and sells at 243 made 16 points. Anybody know what the distinction is?
Capital required to.
Yeah, Mark, you're on the right track, right? So the capital required, we call that leverage, Mark. You made a little money to a lot. You doubled your money, man. You started with 9 and now you got what? 18. That's not as good as 16, but you didn't put up the money. That's called leverage. Now, I should warn Mark, the same supercharged speed you make money with is going to be the same supercharged speed you're going to what?
Lose.
And then, Mark, the guy who buys the stock only has to be right about one thing: direction. And he has forever to be right. Remember, you got to be right. You got to be right in this time frame. You got to be right that Apple goes up. That's why you're a big time winner here. It's like a lottery ticket that came through, right? You're a big time winner because you were right that Apple went up. You said it was going up at least 9 points from 225, went up 18 points, could have been even better. And you said all this was going to happen before expiration. You know, it's like a trifecta, right? If you call all the horses in the race 1, 2, 3, you're a big winner. You know, how hard is that to do? Pretty damn tough, right? By the way, when we go to the other side of the trade, I said, well, Mark, you know what? You may be right about one of those things, but I'll take your money because I think you're going to be wrong about, you know, one of those, whether it's direction or how far or the timing. So I'll take your money. I'll take your money. All right. If you're wrong, kind of cool. If you're wrong, you just lose your premium. So now let's look at some phraseology for that. Your customer, remember this phraseology, Your customer goes long one Apple December 225 call at 9 when Apple's at 227. Do we care about that? We do not. And again, we say at expiration. At expiration, Apple is 224. Apple is at 224. I'm under no obligation to tell you what happened to a 225 call at expiration if the stock is 225 or lower. You should know that if it's a 225 call and Apple or the stock is at the strike price or lower, what is going to happen to this option contract?
It's going to expire.
And you're going to lose your money. So, right? Hopefully that was money you can afford, Letitia, to lose, right? For everybody, that's a different number, by the way. You know, boy, I had a busy week. Are any of you guys from my SIE class? I taught this week. No. Oh man, what a. You know, I unlocked the booking page thing so people could book this class and book some other things, and you know, usually gives me a notice. And then I woke up and there was somebody saying, "Well, I'm waiting in the Zoom room at 6 a.m." I go, "How did you even get to the Zoom room at 6 a.m.?" She's, "Oh, I booked tutoring at 1 a.m. last night." I go, "Oh my God, I shouldn't let you do that. How did it let you do that?" Then I taught the SIE class, and then my friend and I decided, you know, having a couple cocktails and some play some roulette and do some gambling, right? So when I go to the casino, you know, I do an opening purchase, I buy the chips. I'm pretty blessed, and I always think, man, I wonder if it was like our business, because it's not, right? There's no like gambling disclosure document that tells me about all the bad things that can happen to me out on the casino floor. There's no gambling principle, right? I mean, you know, they don't ask me, Dean, can you really afford to lose this money? You know, how much are you willing to bet? I was playing the nickel chips, you know, for the roulette table, right? And the person next to me was paying dollars, and you know, I got lucky and I hit, and then she was like, "Oh, that's a lot of money." I go, "Well, yeah, but you know, it goes and comes just as fast as it ends up." Not only do they not do that, by the way, they actually give me some adult beverages for free to help me with my math and judgment skills. They say, "Hey, Dean, here's some you know, adult beverages on us," and you know, oh well, right. So expire. Okay, I got a question for you. You're absolutely right, by the way. So that's your max. But what if I said on the test, instead of you know, it was 225 or less, I say Apple, oh, this is a phrase they like. Now we do care. Apple remains unchanged. Right? So we say customer goes long, one Apple, December 225 call at 9. When Apple's at 227. I just told you not to worry about that. But if they say at expiration, Apple remains unchanged, now that's important. So now the option contract is not going to expire. We should know that if the Apple is at 227, if the contract has intrinsic value, it's going to be what? Exercised. And again, if you know, Sam or Ethan, you know, gives me a hard time, they say, "Well, Dean, you know, why'd you exercise?" Well, you would want to get at least back 2 of your 9. Why would you not at least to get back 2 of your 9? So you may not lose all of your money. You might only lose what? Some of your money. You know, between 225 and 234, you're a loser, but not a complete loser. P.S. Mark, the guy who bought the Apple stock at 227 and it remains unchanged has not lost any money. You know, you've lost, you know, what, 7 of the 9 points here, right? Now let's do the other phraseology. Your customer goes long, one Apple, December 225 call at 9. With Apple at 227. Several weeks later. They love time clock questions. You know, expiration, you know, several weeks later, you know, Apple remains unchanged, and you close out for intrinsic value. No matter how I do it, you're a loser, right? Right. And so again, we either exercise or we do this. It's not the reason it didn't work out is because you were wrong. Apple didn't go up from where it was and didn't go up enough, and it didn't happen in the timing, right? I mean, by the way, if Apple was at expiration, 225 or lower and expires, and then this is a December contract, and January goes to 300, I go, well, you were right about two of the three things. You were right that it went up, and you were right about how far, but you screwed up the timing, right? You needed a January call, not a December call. By the way, the longer term option, by the way, is going to have a greater premium, right? Because the idea is if you have longer to be right, I'm going to say, Mark, I want more money from you. If you're going to me to be a potential victim until February, I'm going to want some more money. Longer term option contract always have greater premiums.
Does the seller come up with the price 225? Is this just what the seller chooses to do?
No, it's the strikes. The strikes are set. The OCC
Strikes are set.
Yeah, the OCC is the issuer and guarantor of all options.
Okay.
And so we would punch up on our quote machine. You say, Dean, I'm interested in an option contract. By the way, the vocabulary, the nomenclature, that's the fancy word for vocabulary, is important too, Mark, because it helps us qualify the customer. So you say, Dean, I'm interested in options. I say, Mark, what type of option contracts are you interested in? And he says, well, how many types are there? I said, whoa, we're off to a bad start in terms of suitability, in terms of you understanding the game, right? My brother told me he opened an option account at Robinhood. It took like 5 minutes. And I'm like, that's crazy. How could they have even determined any kind of suitability for you? No surprise, state administrator sued them for millions of dollars saying they didn't do what they're supposed to do in terms of qualifying you before we let you start, trading the options. Oh, well, I'm sure there's certain libertarians like myself. Hey, why won't you let me play? I want to play, so a little more strategic. So I say, Mark, there's two types of contracts. There's call contracts and put contracts. What class are you interested in? And now I'm asking him what stock. He says, Dean, I'm interested in Apple calls. I said, well, Mark, I can't really get a quote on an Apple call because there's lots of them. I'm going to need, Mark, a more complete description of what Apple contract you may be interested in. What I need, Mark, is the month, the expiration, and I need the strike. You said, Ian, I'm interested in Apple 225 calls. I said, well, Mark, there's a lot of those. Are you interested in the Octobers, the Decembers, the March? And he said, Dean, I'm interested in the December 225 calls. Okay, Mark, let me put that on my quote machine here. I enter. I say, Mark, right now, the premium for an Apple 225 call is 9. Are you a buyer or a seller of that option contract? Because every contract has two parties, a buyer and a what? A seller, right? So now we're on the other side of this contract. It's the same break even for both parties. By the way, the most complete description of an option test question is a series. The most complete description of an option contract is the series. That's called a series, right? So, I told you, Mark, I appreciate these classes because it reminds people say, "Hey, Dean, it's the same damn class." I go, it's not really, because Mark wasn't in the last class and he didn't ask a good question, and so we didn't have a conversation that I probably should have had. Right? And anyways, this is the terminology for this, and so this is a potential answer set for Series 7, not for SIE, but for Series 7. And let me just put this here as an answer set. All about the answer set. Someday I'm going to write a practice final that's just answer set. I say on the test, the most complete description of an option contract is type. No, that's call or put. Class. No, that's the type plus the stock. Series. Ding, 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 ding. That's the underlying interest, the expiration, the strike, and the type. With that, we can fill out an order ticket. Another test question. To fill out an order ticket, you have to have a complete description of the transaction. So, Christina, I'm your registered option principal. I say, Christina, I'm looking at the order ticket here, and you put the Mark wants to buy an Apple 225 call. Which one, Christina? you have an incomplete description of the option contract. And she goes, oh, let's do the March. I go, whoa, Christina, do you have discretionary authority on Mark's account? Because unless you have discretionary authority, you can't be making a decision about whether it's February or March, or you better call Mark back and say, hey, Mark, you told me to buy you an Apple 225 call. Which one? Series. By the way, I also told you that it's also helps you qualify. My girlfriend at the time, she had a friend of hers who was a brain surgeon. I mean, this guy's serious. And, she was telling me that he loves to trade options. He was looking forward to meeting me so he could talk about options with me because, he can't find anybody else to be, that can keep up with him, I guess, on options. So at first I thought it was a little bit of hubris on his part. Anyway, so we're at the cocktail party and we start talking about options. And to be honest with you, Mark, he knew all the nomenclature, all the vocabulary. It's obvious this guy is trading options. So much so, Mark, I wouldn't want him as my neurosurgeon because I was thinking, man, it seems like this doctor's a little distracted with his investments. I wouldn't want him running out to check on his option positions while he's, in the middle of the brain surgery. All right, so now we're moving on to our second position. So tonight's class is about basic options. We've talked about a long call. Now we're going to talk about a short call. I always like to think that options are about floors and ceilings. And let me just, again, Dean needs to fix the slide here because Apple, I told you, is pretty volatile. Boom. Get that fixed. And boom, 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 boom. What happened to my thing that lets me switch it back? We're short the option contract. There we go. I'm not sure why it's not letting me out. Oh, I got it on the wrong screen. Are you guys seeing the full screen? Let me just fix my, probably shouldn't have done that. It was not a good idea on my part, but hold on. Boom. 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 There we go. Okay. You guys over here. All right. So we're short one Apple 225 call at 9. And again, there's a lot of words for that. What are some other words for that? We could have said you're the seller, the writer.
The writer.
We could have said opening sale, right? It's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. I like to think when I see that word potential victim, and nobody's going to agree to be a potential victim unless you give them some money, right? So I like to put an obligation here, an obligation. Let's see, to sell. So under that, I'm going to put an obligation to sell. And let me just get this done. I apologize. My screen is messing up here. I'm going to close this thing completely as I can get us back to where we need to be. Just give me a second. We are short. There we go. Boom. Boom. Okay. Let's try it again. There we go. Back in business, back in business. Okay, so here what I like to do, what Dean likes to do is not testable. I like to put an obligation to sell the stock at the strike price. If I didn't want to sell the stock at the strike price, I shouldn't have done this, right? Right? If I didn't want to spend some time with you guys this evening, I shouldn't have done an opening sale. Opening sales are how you create or add to a short position. Please note it's the same break even for both parties, right? Call up, rate them on a device. It's the same. It's just a matter where we want it in relationship to that break even, right? So the break even is still 234. It's just where do you want it in relationship to that, right? And now it's going to be the opposite, right? This person's going to want it to go this way. So both parties have this same break even. Boom. All right. And I'm going to illustrate that to you in just a sec. But as we said, that's kind of our pivot for doing options. Our pivot is to first get our break even, whether we memorize it, we do a T, however we get there, and say, okay, this is a strike price plus premium, 234, and then I'm a bear. And the reason that 234 with the arrow down is important is because we know that any price below that, I'm a winner. And any price above that, I'm a loser. And as I told you, I like to think about options as floors and ceilings, and there is a danger here. Danger, danger, danger. There's a floor here, but there is no ceiling. Uh-oh. There is no ceiling. Right, well, let me get... So if we're wrong about this thing, this is going to be really bad. Really bad. If I come into your office and say, I want to lose so much money that you in advance can't tell me how much. You say, Dean, we have very few things that will subject you to unlimited risk. And one of them is obliging yourself to sell stock that you do not own. That's called a naked or uncovered call. If you're outside the privacy of your own home naked, are good things or bad things likely to happen? Bad things. In fact, somebody might say, why don't you cover yourself? Now, I'm simply here illustrating that indeed the break even is 234. Nobody does anything to break even. We do things to make money. But we brought in 9 points here. We brought in 9 points. And again, I recommend we do this on a per share basis. We agreed that for the 9 points, we would sell the Apple for 225. And so the most we're bringing into our account, is 234. But what might we have to pay out for that stock? There's a finite supply of Apple, potential infinite demand. And so very testable. No, this subjects you to unlimited risk. For example, when we were long, for the person who was long, 243 was a dreamy price. And so if that is a dreamy price for the person who's long, for the person who's short, it's going to be what kind of a price? A nightmare. This is a zero-sum game. What does that mean? For every winner, there's a loser, right? So past 234, you got problems. So that's our break even. What I think of this is I can take a little bit of a hit here. I got a little bit of a cushion. As long as it doesn't move past 234, life is good. All right, so now let's do some test phraseology. Your customer goes short one Apple, December 225, call at 9, when Apple is 227. Who cares? At expiration, Apple is 224. Apple is 224. So I am under no obligation on the test to tell you what happened. You should be able to tell me what happened. If your customer is short, and Apple December 225 call at 9, when Apple is 227 at expiration, it's 224. What happens? And I get to go neener, neener, neener. I get to keep the money. The best case is I agree to be a potential victim and nobody victimizes me. That's as good as it gets. Now, if they're nice on the test, they might tell you that option contract expires, but they don't need to, right? Because you're supposed to know. If at expiration, an option contract has no intrinsic value, the option contract will expire worthless. You're supposed to know if at expiration, an option contract has intrinsic value, it will be exercised. That is the best case scenario. Let's try another one. Your customer is short an Apple December 225:9 when Apple's at 227. Apple at expiration remains unchanged. Apple at expiration remains unchanged. So you're going to have to buy the stock at 227 and you're going to deliver it at 225. Are you still a happy camper? I call you and I say, hey, Christina, you know that Apple 225 call we wrote at 9 when Apple was 227? You know, it's expiration and Apple's at remains unchanged is 227. You got exercised. She goes, oh, man, oh no. I go, well, hold on. So we had to go buy the stock at 227, Christina. We delivered it at 225, which we're obliged to do. You took a 2-point hit, but it's okay because you started with 9. So neener, we still got money left over. So as long as we got money left over, it's going to be okay, right? It'll be okay as long as it goes past 234. Guaranteed test question. Once it goes past 234, we start to lose money. And how much money can we lose? Unlimited. Listen, you know, Ethan, customers do this all the time. What if I had the stock? I said, well, if you had the stock, I wouldn't be having this discussion with you right now. That would be a covered call. That's an entirely different thing, right? You know, be careful. Don't be bringing extra stuff into the question. I'm cautioning you as a test taker. What do we have the stock? If he had the stock, the question would say he has the stock. You know, boy, I had this guy the other day. You know, he gave me a brilliant answer to a question that was not asked. And I said, where is that in this question? I mean, everything you said is intellectually coherent, but it's nowhere to be found in this question. I mean, they didn't say the guy has the stock or, you know, so don't overthink it. You know, I had a guy today get a tough love. I mean, he's a very smart guy. He's too smart for his own good. You know, he missed it by 1 point, which I hate those kind of scores. And, you know, and he still wants to get more tutoring. And he says, well, Dean, what do you think? I said, well, you know, you're not going to want to hear this, but, you know, I think you're too smart for your own good. You didn't want to go with the program. You wanted to do it your own way. So, you know, you're tutoring, you're asking me to do this. And then you want to say, oh, enough of that. Let's do this. Let's go over here. You know, instead of like, let's get one thing done and then move on to the next thing. So I said, if we're going to do tutoring, you know, I'm happy to work with you. I have no issues with you, but, you know, we need to kind of, you know, slow it down a little bit, my friend. And, you know, don't use your own brain against yourself. I mean, that's in most situations, it's better to have too much brain power, I guess, but sometimes you can have too much brain power for your own good. There's very few things that subject investors to unlimited risk. And that's one of them, right? So that's testable. Now, listen, you know, people say, well, then why does anybody do it? But, well, you know, if you join me for lecture 4, you would do a credit call spread here. What I would do is I would take part of my 9 points and buy a higher strike just in case, right? So there's a way to take that money without taking all the risk is the point. All right, here's our next one. So we're doing our basic options today. I always have a saying, if you've been watching the channel, I always say, don't be a dumb bear. You know, be a smart bear. You know, how can you get the picnic basket without taking all the risk? Right. So what I mean by that is there's another way to be bearish on Apple, and it would be to short the stock. Oh, my God. So you call me and you say, hey, Dean, I would like to borrow 100 shares of Apple stock. I say, okay, well, let me sign a call and loan consent and locate and see if we can get this for you. You say, Dean, I'd like to sell it short at 227. I said, ooh, you know, that would be, you know, taking unlimited risk. You know, so here I am bearish, but I'm a smarter bear because I'm still bearish. But if this blows up, I'm just going to lose my premium. As I said, one reason people buy options is because if you're wrong, you just lose your premium, right? And you wouldn't want to sell the stock unless you thought the stock was going down. You know, I tell the story of, you know, I was in this chat room and I said, are there any bears in the woods? And this person said, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm bearish and it just looks like these bulls are running amok. And, you know, we got to convince them that they're wrong about this stock. And so I'm a bear. And anyways, the person says, I'm a bear. I said, cool. Okay. So there's 2 of us now. So we're off to a start. She goes, Dean, what did you do? I said, I bought 10 of the 40 put contracts for 4. I paid $4,000 to be able to stick it to somebody at 40. And again, I have to be right about 3 things. Direction down, in this case, 4 points. How far down? 4 points. Cover my out-of-pocket cost and the timing. And I said, what'd you do? And she goes, I wrote the 40 calls naked for 4. I go, oh my God. I certainly wouldn't do that. And she goes, yeah, and I haven't told my husband, and I'm hoping the calls expire and I get to keep the $4,000. I go, wow. I don't think that's a very smart bear. I like to think of options as being about floors and ceilings. And so here there's a ceiling. What I mean by that is if Apple is 225 or higher, this contract will have no intrinsic value. And again, the reason that's important is we say the phraseology is because they toss the phraseology around a lot. You close out at intrinsic value, right? And as I've said, when you buy an option contract, you got to be right about 3 things. You got to be right about direction. You got to be right about how far, and you got to be right about the timing. You know, I kind of joke, if I really wanted to teach you options, I'd make you buy one of these things and you would figure out pretty quickly how it works. All right, let's do our setup. Your customer goes long, 1 Apple December 225 put at 9, or your customer buys 1 Apple December 225 put at 9, or your client's the owner of an Apple December 225 put at 9, or your customer is an opening purchase. 1 Apple December 225 put at 9, when Apple's at 227. Do we care about Apple being at 227? No. We don't care where Apple's at when we do the trade. We care where Apple's at when we close it, right? And then again, first thing we want to do is get our break even going here. And you can either memorize a great memory aid device. A great memory aid device is call up, put down. Call up, put down. The break even in puts is strike price minus premium. It also works for intrinsic value, put down. If the market price is down, the put contract has intrinsic value. Right now, this contract has no intrinsic value. So we're paying 9 for what we call time value. And again, we always want to know where we want the stock in relationship to the break even, because that's a pretty important pivot for us, right? We know that we want this stock down. We're bearish, right? So that's what that looks like in terms of that. So the reason we said that's important is if we get that correct, now we can just say, okay, well, we know that if I give you a price of, for example, 207, we know we're a winner, right? And if I give you a price of 210, we know we're a loser. So it's kind of helpful to have that as kind of one of our pivots about where we want the stock in relationship to the break even. Okay, well, now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do max gain, max loss. We're going to be talking about expiration. We're going to talk several weeks later, and we're going to do all that. All right, so break evens and puts, as I said. By the way, the label on the slide is 3 because we're doing 4 basic option positions. So that's just saying we've done long call, we've done short put, we're short call, we're working on a long put, and then we'll end our time together looking at a short put. We said a great mnemonic is put down. I'm now simply illustrating the break even. It's okay. It's all right. People go, oh, Dean, I don't get it. I buy it to sell it. I go, well, those are different its. Those are different its. When you buy a put contract, you're establishing the choice to sell the stock at the strike price. Those are different its. When you when you buy a put contract, dollars out, you're establishing the choice to stick the stock to somebody at 225. You know, I had a young lady in class and we were going over puts, and she says, you know, this is the most unchristian thing I've ever heard of. I would never stick it to anybody. And I said, well, you know, it's kind of like the casino. I mean, you know, if you don't like gambling, then you probably shouldn't go to a casino, right? I mean, you know, but here if we look at this and we say we buy the stock at 216 and we stick it to somebody at 225, we'd make 9 points. We spent 9 points. We break even. Nobody does things to break even. We do things to make money. Right? So there's our break even. I'm just illustrating that indeed that is the break even. If we go back here, right? We got to get past our break even to make some money. There's our break even again right there. As we said, we want it to be down from there. Okay, so we know we're a winner if it does go down past that. Boom. All right, so let's look now at the maximum gain. The maximum gain, a lot of people get hung up on it, on the put contract. But remember, when you're a bear, you say, okay, if I'm a bear, that means I want the stock to go down. And the furthest the stock can go down is to what price?
0.
Yeah, so I get it out of the trash can. I stick it to somebody at 225. And Mark says, Dean, do you know the stock is worthless? I go, yeah, I just got it out of the trash can. He says, Dean, you're making me pay $225 for stock that is worthless? I say, yes. If you didn't want to do that, Mark, you shouldn't have collected the 9 points from me. You say, man, I'm going to lose $225. I go, no, no, no. You're not falling down 225 flights of stairs, Mark. You're falling down 216 flights of stairs because you get to keep the 9. He said, man, you're so good at my loss. I go, well, you know, your loss is my gain. Right,
But
so
that's
that would be
$21,600, right?
There you go. There you go. Right. Yeah. So, you know, break even, however, remember, Mark, is expressed as a price per share, but then you're correct, right? Then we would multiply that. Let's do one where we don't make our entire gain. We don't make our entire gain. All right, here we go with test phraseology. Your customer goes long one Apple December 225 put at 9 or buy, owner, holder, opening purchase, whatever. At expiration, Apple is 207. 207. So the question is, am I going to exercise my 225 put if the Apple is 207?
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm going to buy it at 207 and I'm going to put it to you. I'm going to stick it to you.
225.
Yeah. Yeah. My 40 puts, I told you, I bought the stock was 30, right? So I bought the stock at 30. I stuck at the guy at 40. I made 10 points. I paid 4 to get going. I made 6. Your point, Mark, 10 contracts. That's $6,000. Right? Now, one contract's kind of boring. Now, it gets a little more excited if you got, 5 or 10 or, it's a little more exciting. All right. So, pretty good. Pretty good. Let's try the same question intellectually. Same question. Now, be careful what I'm asking you. Be careful what I'm asking. I was going to do that.
Can I phrase this to you, Dean? And I hope I don't bore everybody else.
No,
just to get
not a
this.
problem. Not a problem.
All right. So I'm out of pocket 9 or 900. I went long, but so I bought puts. I want it to go down for me to be profitable.
Absolutely.
The seller of this deal, he wants it to go up.
Coming up next.
Okay.
Coming up next, right? Every contract has 2 parties. All right. Same intellectual question, except now we say several weeks later. Your customer goes long one Apple December 225 put at 9 with Apple 227. Several weeks later, with Apple at 207, he closes out at intrinsic value. Now, be careful what I'm asking you. If I ask you, what is the intrinsic value of a 225 put with a stock at 207, that's 18. That's not what I asked you. I said, if you close it out for intrinsic value. Remember this, Mark?
Yeah.
The guy who shorted Apple at 227 with Apple at 207 has made 20 points. We, Mark, have only made 9 points. What is the difference?
We didn't put up the capital.
Right on. Not only that, Mark, the guy who shorted the Apple stock your point, had to put up half of $22,700. What's that, 11,350? Is
Yeah.
Reg T. And he was taking unlimited risk. We only had to put up 9. We made 18. We doubled our money. Woohoo! Now remember, the same supercharged speed we lose money with or make money with is the same supercharged speed we what? We lose money right with it, right?
Mhm.
So I think buying a put is a wonderful thing. You know, because again, when you buy a call, you buy a put, you buy a straddle, you buy a spread. When you buy options, the worst case is you lose your money. Right. So here we go. Your customer goes long an Apple December 225 put at 9. When Apple's at 227, Apple remains unchanged. Apple remains unchanged. And that means it's still 227. Damn.
Lost it all.
We lost it all, right? I told you I was playing roulette last night. Right? I said, hey, it's time to go home. I'm all in. So, oh well. All right. So that was our long put. You know, a lot of ways to think of the break even. We can say break even to 0 or break even, however you come up with whatever that number is on that. And that's our max gain there. Our max loss of the premium. And here's our last one for this evening. Here's our last one. Remember, we have 2 types of contracts, calls and puts. You can either buy them or sell them. So we have 4 basic option positions. And we could say short, we could say seller, we could say writer, we could say opening sale.
Oh, so this is sells.
Yeah, yeah. So again, if people get hung up on this, they say, Dean, I don't get it. I sell it to buy it. I go, those are different its. When we sell a put contract, we're obliged to buy the stock. If we didn't want to be obliged to buy the stock, we shouldn't have sold this option contract. I mean, because that's the whole point, right? If you collect money, you know, if my insurance company didn't want to, you know, pay my claim, they shouldn't have collected my premium. Right. So here's the premium, boom. And I always like to do this here to say, okay, buying the stock is bullish, right? Because we need to know where we want it. It's the same break even for both parties. Call up, put down. The break even is the same. Strike price, less premium. The difference is, where do you want the stock in relationship to the break even? And if you're short the put, remember we said this guy over here wants it to be below.
So he wants it to go up.
That's
Okay.
right. We want it to be up. By the way, ideally, we want it to be 225 or higher so we can keep the money. Neener. Whenever you sell options, sell a call, sell a put, sell a straddle, sell a spread, the best case is you agree to be a potential victim and nobody victimizes you. Right? You know, the ideal situation for me tonight is I open up the Zoom and nobody shows up. I go, whoo, man, I get to keep the money. You know, don't have to spend an hour. I'm like, okay, call my brother. Hey, come on up, get a tequila, man. So, and that's a nice pivot for us. Nice pivot. So you can memorize break evens. I would prefer, you know, as your, you know, guru or whatever, that you understood options. Because if you understand them, then you could get 100 on options. If you can track money in and out of an account, and you're not fumbling around that a short put is an obligation to buy contract specifications, you're in pretty damn good shape. Now, remember, the point of this is we know that if I tell you, for example, that number, I'm a winner. And if I give you this number, I'm a loser. Right? So it's kind of nice to have that little break even there. You know, this is, I showed you a graph here. I wouldn't suggest you make a graph like I've done here. But, you know, this, as I'm saying, is the pivot of being able to answer the question. What I mean by that is, if I have this on my scratch paper, I'm in pretty good shape, right? Because now I can kind of look at the question and kind of figure out what's going on. All right, so let's now look at the illustration of the break even. So again, I can sustain a little bit of a hit. So when I start with you know, the way I think of it is I start with the advantage when I collect money, right? Because I already got money in pocket. And for that 9 points, remember, I said I would buy the stock at 225. And now I'm just illustrating that indeed The break even is strike price less premium. Because again, if I take that 9-point hit on the stock, it's okay. I say, hey, Letitia, you got exercised. You bought the stock at 225. We sold the stock at 216. You took a 9-point hit. But good news, there was 9 points in your account. So you broke even, right? Nobody does things to break even. They do things to make money. But, I joke, it's worse than losing, right? A push, is a better. A push means you didn't lose. But, oh, well, nobody does that to break even. But again, the maximum gain would be the premium. Here we would have the premium as our max gain, because if the stock is 225 or higher, the put will expire and I get to go neener. Right? The best case is, let's do that in test phraseology. In test phraseology, I say your customer goes short one Apple December 225 put at 9 when Apple's at 227. Remember this phraseology? At expiration, Apple remains unchanged. So we got to be careful, because Dean said 227 doesn't matter. We don't care where it's at when we do the trade. We care where it's at when we are done. And at expiration, we're done. Either the contract's going to be exercised or the contract is going to expire. There's only 3 things that can happen to an option contract. Be careful. I'm not asking what can happen to the player. I'm asking what can happen to an Apple December 225 put. It can be traded, it can be exercised, or it can expire. Is expired good news or bad news? Well, that depends whether you're long or short. So what happens to a 225 put if the stock is 227 at expiration? Is it going to be
It
exercised?
expires worthless.
Right on. And that means neener. You get to keep the money. By the way, even if it doesn't expire, even if it gets exercised, let's try this one. By the way, we should know that 223 is X number of points from 216, 7 points in the right direction. So I could have just compared that to my break even. Remember, my break even is 216. So I can literally just compare that to that and know that that's going to be okay. But now, is the contract at expiration? It's a 225 put. Is the stock, the contract going to get exercised? The answer is yes. So I call you and I say, hey, Christina, you got exercised on that put. You go, oh, damn. I go, yeah, and we sold it. You go, oh, man, how bad is it? I go, well, you're still a winner, my friend. You're still a winner because we took a 2-point hit on the stock. But remember, you collected how many? 9. You still have more money in than money what?
Out.
Money out, right? So you're still a winner. You're still a winner. The maximum loss. Okay, this was my idea. Test questions solicited. My idea. And I told this client, I said, hey, listen, there's a buyout at 75, a strategic buyer. It's all cash. All cash. And what I think we should do is sell 10 of the 75 puts for 13. 10 of the 75 puts for 13. If I'm right, we're going to collect $13,000 and the contracts will expire and we'll keep the money. And he says, let's do it. And I was right. And then he called me and he said, Dean, there's a rumored buyout at 240. I said, well, Mark, a rumored buyout at 240 is different than the previous scenario. And he said, Dean, we can get 20 points for the 220 puts. I said, Mark, you're obligating yourself to buy 1,000 shares at 240. That's 240 grand. Now, good news, you do have cash equal to the aggregate exercise price. So I'm not worried about whether you can perform on the contract, but still, I think, Mark, somebody knows something we don't know if they're willing to pay us 20 points for that. And at expiration, it was 100 and he got put to stock. Now, he could have lost $220,000. He only ended up losing 120. Now, to take away here, we know what this is going to be. The worst case here, Christina, is you're going to end up buying the stock at 225 and the stock is worthless. That's as bad as it gets, right? It goes against you. And if it goes against you, there's our graph. It only can go to 0. Stocks don't go past there, but boy, that's where it could go, right? All the way to 0. One more point here about this situation. You know, why sell options? Why sell options? One reason to sell options is to get paid to do something you're already prepared to do. You're already prepared to do. So Mark calls me and he says, Dean, what's Apple trading at? I say, Mark, Apple's trading at 227. He said, Dean, put in a buy limit at 224. Put in a buy limit at 224. So I say, Mark, so let me get this right. You want to buy Apple at 224 or less, your price or better? And he says, yes. And I said, do you want to make this, day order or GTC? How do you want to do this? He said, well, I'm thinking GTC. I said, okay. So before I place the order, Mark, let's just have a little bit of a conversation. If nobody has to do business with you, Mark, at your price or better. Nobody. And so, I don't want you to get upset if nobody, will sell you the Apple at 224 or less. And that means, Apple could go to 300 and you'll never get the stock. He goes, well, geez, Steve, why are you being so rude? I said, well, I just want to walk you through this. And I said, hey, if you tell me you want to buy it at 224, Mark, but, if it's like 220, is that still the case? Or if it's 210 or 205? I mean, because you could buy it at 224, goes to 0, and you're going to lose 22,400. He goes, well, again, Dean, I don't understand why you're being so rude. I mean, so negative. I said, well, Mark, have you thought about getting paid to do something you're already prepared to do? You told me you're willing to buy Apple at 224. You might want to considering as an alternative to your buy limit order, selling an Apple 225 put at 9. Why not, Mark, get paid to do something you're already prepared to do? You told me that you want to buy the Apple stock, so why not collect $900? And Mark, if somebody sticks it to you, you're paying $216 for the Apple. And $216 is better than $224. Selling a put, Mark, is an alternative to a buy limit order. So if you say, hey, Dean, I'm the ROP, I say, what do you want to be approved for? He says, Dean, I got a customer who wants to write puts on stocks he's willing to own. On stocks he's willing to own. Right? Again, so why not do it? But I always joke, if Warren Buffett likes doing it, it's probably not a bad idea. Warren Buffett loves selling puts on stocks he's willing to own. And if you exercise him, what's he saying? Thank you very much. Well, I wanted the stock anyways, right? So why not get paid to do something you're already prepared to do? Right? Yeah. By the way, separate lecture, but if you're prepared to sell the stock, covered call. If you're prepared to buy the stock, so. All right, well, if you've been with me, there is the options matrix in all its glory. It's not a box with 4 squares. One thing you might want to consider doing is taking a sheet of paper, fold it into 4s. And tonight we've discussed the 4 option strategies, basic options. We talked about a long call. We said when you're long a call, you paid a premium. You have a choice to buy the stock at the strike price. We said you're bullish. We said your max gain is unlimited. Your max loss is the premium. And we said your break even is strike price plus premium. Now, the neat thing about the matrix, not a box with 4 squares, a matrix, is every time you cross this line, gains and losses change.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So my point is, if you can get this quadrant down, just the long call quadrant, you're going to be in pretty good shape. And then remember, we had our strike price in terms of our tonight's discussion. We talked about this strike price here. In our Apple stock, we've been discussing tonight a strike price of 225. And we've been talking about Apple going anywhere from 0. I think the highest we looked at for Apple tonight was 243. right? Now, by the way, if you get that first quadrant, then you can just go right the opposite, right? I say, what can you tell me about a short call? You say, Dean, you're obligated to sell the stock at the strike price. You received a premium, you're bearish, your max gain is the premium, guaranteed test question. If I come into your office and say, I want to lose so much money that you in advance can't tell me how much. I say, well, I'll tell you what, you could sell a naked call. I always joke this is kind of like picking up a nickel in front of a bulldozer. I mean, it's just not a really good risk reward trade-off, right? I mean, you know, my brother, I love him, but geez, my solar panels, I'm coming to you tonight from my off-grid location. Is the audio okay? Is this the audio okay? I got my lithium battery over here. Anyways,
Yeah, perfect.
my brother's off-grid with me, but I put my solar panels on the ground, and my brother put him on his roof. And he was telling me that he was up on his roof trying to, you know, get snow in the winter off his solar panels. Like, Chris, please let me pay for someone to come do that for you. There's no upside to you being on the roof. I mean, I told you to put the damn panels on the ground. I said, but you know, Taisha, my sister-in-law, I said, don't let him go on the roof. And I said, Chris, I bought him a roof rake. I said, Chris, they make rakes that you can, instead of climbing on your roof in the snow, you know, I thought, oh my God. I thought of him a naked call, right? It's just, there's no risk reward trade-off to make that a worthwhile proposition, right? So you could do a credit call spread. You could do other things. All right, we talked about a long put. And I told you, I'm a big fan of being a smart bear. You know, if you want to be a smart bear, I always wanted a TMZ channel for finance. One day I got my wish. I was watching CNBC and Bill Ackman was talking about his short position in Herbalife. And at the point I was thinking, man, I'm not so sure I'd be on national television chatting up my short position. And sure enough, just as I'm thinking about how I think that's not a smart idea, Carl Icahn calls in. He says, you realize how stupid it is to be talking about a short position? All it takes is a guy like me to start buying that stock and denying the loan consent form. This could be the mother of all short squeezes. And by the way, when they're having the conversation, the stock's going up. I think Carl Icahn called his broker, said, hey, time to squeeze this Ackman guy. You know, anyways, Bill Ackman lost a couple $2 billion. And he said he's still bearish on Herbalife, but he's changed his position from short the stock to long the puts. Moving forward, he's only going to lose the premium. He's not going to get maintenance calls. He's not going to have unlimited loss potential. So I always think being a long a put is the way to be a smart bear. Because if you're wrong, you just lose your what? Your premium. Right? And if you're a bear, you want the stock to go to zero. And so your best scenario is the stock goes to zero. And if you're wrong, you just lose your premium. Again, once again, whenever you cross the line on the matrix, opposite expectations, right? We said, for example, 243 was a dreamy price for the long call, a nightmare for the short call, right? We said zero is dreamy for the long put, but not the puts, by the way, are the ones that give people the most trouble. You know, as a tutor, you know, teacher, I don't get worried about people who are confused in ways I see people get confused about all the time. I get worried when somebody's confused in some way I've never seen before. I'm like, okay, I've never seen that one. You know, and I told you,
Dean, zero is not dreamy for the short put, is it?
No, it's the opposite, right?
That's
this is the dreamy here, we're here, right? Whoop, let me get
it.
Yeah, this is gonna be dreamy here, goes zero, boom. And then over here, that's gonna be your nightmare. Right on. Anyways, puts are the ones that throw people for a loop, right? I don't get it. I buy it to sell. When you buy a put, you have a choice to sell the stock. They're different its. And if we're going to have put-ers, we got to have put-es, right? It won't work unless there's a put-e. Now, I usually start, and I'll give you one more thing before we close, is I use an analogy of contracts outside of the securities industry. You know, this car doesn't exist, Mark, yet. And I went to the car dealer and I said, listen, I'd like to give you $3,000 to be able to call that car away from you at 25 when it comes off the boat from Japan. He said, Dean, the manufacturer's suggested retail price is 24. I said, well, if I thought you would sell it to me for 24, I wouldn't be offering you $3,000. Anyways, you know, it comes off the boat. He says, Dean, it's here. And I come down and he says, Dean, I just had an offer for 32. And what I'd like to do is get rid of the obligation I have to you to sell at 25. I said, you know, it sounds like to me, both of us have traded options before. I think what you're asking me to do is a closing sale. You'd like to buy back my contract, huh? I said, what are you going to give me? I gave you 3. What are you going to give me? He said, I'll give you 5. I said, well, listen, you must think I'm new. I have a choice to buy at 25. You just told me the car's 32. If I was going to walk, I'm going to want at least $7,000. P.S. I would also like some time value. I've been sitting around for weeks waiting on the damn car, and I flew down here. I said, tell you what, make it, make it 32. How about another 1,000 for my time? Let's call it 8, and I'll walk. I'll let you have the car back. Remember, I don't own the car. I just control the car, right? And he said, well, yeah, I ain't going to do that. I said, okay, fine. I'm exercising. I hopped into the car and I drove it off the lot. Woo! That's a call contract, right? I was leasing a high-end automobile, and the car dealer said, Dean, at the end of this lease, this car is going to be $60,000 or more on the residual value. That's what this car is going to be worth. I go, really? You have a crystal ball? I said, I certainly don't think it's going to be 60 grand, particularly since I'm the guy who's going to be driving it. So I'll tell you what, I'd like to make you a little side bet. How about I give you $4,000? Because what's the catch? He knows people give you money unless there's some kind of catch. I said, for the $4,000 at the end of the lease, I'd like to be able to stick it to you at 60. And he said, well, what if it's 70? I go, well, I obviously am going to stick it to you at 60 if I can sell the auto trader at 70, right? In this case, he didn't take my money, but let's assume he would have. And at the end of the lease, the car's 40. He's sitting on his lot, and he says, I wonder if Dean's going to show up today and make me perform on that European style option. European style. Remember, I can't stick it to him anytime. I can only stick it to him what? At the end. I'm the putter. He's the puttee. Test question. Is Dean going to exercise his 60 put when the stock car is worth 40? Yeah. I'm going to make him pay $60,000. I have a choice to sell at 60. He said, Dean, you're making me pay 60 for a car that's only worth 40. What do I say?
Yeah, you took the premium.
That's right. He's on to lose 20 grand. I go, no. You get to keep the 4. You only lost 16. He said, man, you're so good at my loss. I go, because it's my gain, right? So my point is the contracts do exist outside the securities industry. All right. Any other comments or things you want to talk about tonight? That's our evening, conclusion of our evening. I think we got that down about 9 minutes. Yeah. What do you got?
I got a question, not about this, but about booking. So I'm taking the 7. I'm taking the 7 in a few weeks. I can't find the, it's not on the booking for the advanced option classes, on your page.
Oh, I'll roll it out tonight.
Okay.
When you're testing, Ethan?
August 5th. Will it be before then?
August 5th.
Yeah.
Okay. What's this? This is July. That's pretty tight. Are you guys, are the most of you 7s or 6s? What are you guys? SIEs?
65, and I'm in Henderson. Is there any way I can? I can talk to you every day, class a day.
Well, you can book tutoring. I mean, there's a booking page. What do you mean talk every day, Mark? I'm not sure what you mean by talk every day.
Tutor me.
Oh, absolutely. Just go to the booking page. I'm more than happy to spend time with you. So you might, if you can't find anything, Mark, just let me know. Send me an email and I'll call you and we can do it. Can
I get your email? Because I'm having a hard time finding it on the booking page.
It's really tough. It's Dean. Well, but it's because I'm really booked. It's Dean at guruexamprep.com. So just send me an email, say you tried to book, and I'll try and do that. What about you, Letitia? Are you 7?
Yes, I'm the 7.
And when you testing?
August 13th.
August 13th. And Christina, when you're what's your time frame?
So I'm taking the 7. My time frame is September 1st.
Okay, so Ethan, here's what I'm asking. I'm going to put that up, Ethan, but remember it is the 4th lecture in the sequence. So I'm going to put that up instead of stock plus options. Right. So that would naturally be the one that would come next, but I'll go ahead and put that up for us. And be like Mark. Mark, you certainly don't need to do advanced option strategies for 65. But Ethan, let's hope we get you guys are like Mark and we have some good questions, good participation on that. Those are going to be straddles and spreads. And bring your questions, bring whatever you want to talk about. I'll do like I've done tonight. I'll have some things I want to talk about. If for some reason, Ethan, you can't make that class, remember that's still available as a replay because I've done it. I do them about every 3-4 months. I roll out a new one and do it again with different people with different questions. And, I like this pretty good. I think we did cover some ground here that we don't usually cover just because again,
Absolutely.
so sometimes people don't have the questions or whatever. So look for that, Ethan. I'll put it up either tonight or tomorrow morning.
And what's the next
I have
one
a
again?
question.
What's
Oh,
that?
sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So you said which one's after the
Oh yeah.
advanced?
So we did. So there's 4
We
lectures.
did basics.
The 4 lectures. So the introduction to option contracts. That's good for everybody. 65, SIE, you know, everybody. 7. And then the second one is what we did tonight. After we've done the introduction to option contract, that's where we talk about at length time value, intrinsic value, opening purchases and closing sales, all those preliminaries. You know, that's I think like an hour. And then this is the second part where we now, based on how the pieces move around the board, like if we're playing chess, tonight we said, okay, let's play a game of chess. So that's that first lecture. This is the second. And so you're held accountable for 9 option strategies. Tonight we did long call, short call, long put, short put. Ethan, speculative, meaning you don't have the stock. You might end up with the stock, but you're betting on the stock. The other 2 speculative strategies are advanced option strategies, multiple option strategies, spreads, and straddles. That's 6. On the 7, you're held accountable for 9. That's 6. The other ones you're held accountable for are how to hedge a stock position, how to use options to hedge either a long stock position or a short stock position, or how to generate additional income on stocks in your portfolio. That's a covered call. So Ethan, what I was saying is normally in the sequence, we would have the 3rd lecture about hedging stock positions before we move on to advanced option strategies. We're going to go ahead and put up an advanced option strategies class that fits in with your timing of taking the test because you asked for it. But remember, you can plug the gap by watching a replay of the.
And is the exam going to cover, like, it said like there might be what, like 10 option questions on or more? When more?
20.
20. So like
20, give or take 5.
they're just all kinds. It could be like, hey, like what's a short call unlimited?
Right on, Ethan. So that's why it's so important
not just breakeven. Got it.
That's why you have to be able to identify options strategy, because if not, you're just going to be looking at the screen going, I don't know, B. You got to be able to say, oh, this is a straddle, this is a spread, this is a combination, this is a covered call, this is a basic position, so that you can do that. Yeah, it's completely random. Now, I think I'm on the high side saying 20 plus or minus 5. There's other guys like Dean who do this, who think it's more like 15 plus or minus 5.
Okay.
But, you know, I'd be prepared for 20 options. Now, good news, if you get them, though, you say, give me 100 of them, right? Yeah. Once you get it, once the lights go on, you know, with options, lights go on and they go out again, then they go on again, they go out again. So we got to keep it getting lit. So, yeah, identification is really, really key. The the big binary thing, Ethan, is to decide, are you looking at a speculator or are you looking at a hedger? Are you looking at somebody who doesn't have the stock or somebody does, because they're different? You know, I teach series 3, always fun, series 3 is commodities, and half the guys in the class actually have soybeans. You know, the other guys in the class are just betting on the price of soybeans. You know, the guys who actually have the soybeans show up in pickup trucks and overalls and cowboy hats and boots, and they just got through milking some things. The other half of the class shows up in pinky rings and gold chains and Armani suits and Ferraris and Porsches. By the way, the guys in the pickup trucks have more money, but the guys in the pickup trucks are hedging. They're just trying to lay off the risk of their soybeans. You know, the guys in the Porsches say, hey, bring it on, man. I'm here for you. Tonight, we've been talking about people saying, bring it on. I'm willing to take some risk. And all these people we talked about tonight are betting on the stock price, right? We were betting on Apple, 225 was our strike. And we were betting either buying, here we go again. This has been a good class. You're either buying volatility or you're selling volatility as a speculator. So tonight we looked at somebody who bought a call on Apple and was buying upward volatility. Upward volatility. We looked at somebody who sold the upward volatility on Apple. We looked at somebody who bought downward volatility on Apple, long put, and somebody who sold downward volatility. What I mean by that is they were speculating on the price movement of Apple, either Apple going up or Apple what?
Going down.
Nobody tonight cared about the new iPhone and how many people are going to buy it, or, you know, the European community and the fine they're going to make. You know, we're just betting. I'm joking, but we probably would be using more trading options, what we call technical analysis, than we would be using fundamental analysis. Right? Because we need to be right, and we got to be right in a time frame. You know, options, remember the time frame for test purpose is going to be 3, 6, 9 months, with the exception of leaps. So, you know, we got to be, you know, if we're trading options, you know, this is you know, it's moving pretty quick, right? These things. I saw a stat, I don't know if it's true, but they said that a lot of broker dealers plan on a option customer burning themselves out within 12 months. You know, that you're gonna start playing and you're gonna be all excited, right? You know, it's like Dean at the roulette table. You know, they think they're gonna see me for, you know, X number of months as a regular, and then all of a sudden, what happened to Dean? You know, so we'll see. All right, anything else for tonight?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dean. Quick question. So I know that there's the advanced option strategies class with straddles and spreads, but what is the term for a position where one of them is an options contract and then the other one is maybe going short the stock?
Oh, that's the hedge. Right.
That's
If you short,
that one.
yeah. You always want to be able to offset the stock position. So for protection, Christina, you always buy the option, right? So if I'm short the stock, I could buy a call. I could put in a ceiling and establish the choice to buy back the borrowed stock at a set price. And that would change the short stock position from unlimited risk to limited risk. And that is a bear, a smart bear, but a bear. The stock dominates. So you're not buying a call there because you think the stock is going up. You're buying the call to protect the short stock position. And so that whenever we say protect, we mean hedge. A hedge keeps good things in and bad things out, right? Are you hedged? Or the same with a long stock. When I buy a put on my long stock, I'm not a bear. I'm buying the choice to sell the stock I own. I'm buying protection. I joked about it, Christina, but we're putting in a floor or ceiling on the stock position. When I buy a call in the short stock position, I'm putting in a ceiling. I'm doing construction and making sure this thing doesn't blow up past that strike price. And when I buy a put on the stock, I'm putting in a floor. And, you know, construction costs money. You know, I always joke insurance, right? I'm buying insurance on my stock position, and insurance costs money. And again, you don't buy insurance because you plan on wrecking, right? You buy insurance because, you know, just in case, right? You know, I got a little fender bender with a guy, young man. I said, I got out of my car. I said, no worries. I'm properly insured. You're okay, right? I goes, yeah. I said, yeah, no problem. You know, we're going to make sure, you know, we fix your car, fix my car. It's not a problem. He wouldn't want me to get out of the car and go, I'm naked. I don't have insurance. Uh-oh. You know, I'm uncovered.
Is right.
You know, so that would be a problem. All right. Anything else for tonight?
I got one last question.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Oh, remember, I forgot to tell Mark, you also qualify now for the free office hours as a paid student.
Cool.
So you can find that on the booking page and you can book at that as well. Yeah, Ethan, what do you got?
So I'm also signed up for the mutual fund class. Are
Yeah.
we going to cover everything in that one session, or is it going to be broken up like this?
No,
kind
we
of
did
the
that all
options?
one fell swoop.
Okay, cool.
When I first
All
started, I tried to do this in one fell swoop, and we just couldn't do it because it's just too much. We would be, particularly at night. I mean, it's one thing I'm teaching a 4-day 7 class because we have 4 days. We could do a little today, a little tomorrow, a little. And I first one of these we did. Oh, but that was stupid. You know, we start at 5:30, 9:30, and if somebody's joining from the East Coast, so now I break off. So that's the only one I break up. The other ones we start and we go until the end. So let's just right now I'm looking right. We started what 5:30, 6:30. And so if we were doing the introduction or the advanced or the option, the hedges, they just wouldn't work. Right. And but by the way, cover up your study time too. What I mean by that is you can't be doing this stuff all day long because your brain just turns to mush. So you got to, you know, do like 90 minutes, take a 30-minute break, you know, change the channel intellectually, do something like do mutual funds after you do an hour and a half of options. If you change both the activity and the subject area, your brain will stay fresher longer. Is if you try to do like 40, 90-minute sessions on, you know, munis or options, your brain's just going to shut down at some point. All right. Okay, guys.
Thank you.
Remember,
I'm going to see you on Saturday.
All right, cool. I have two Christinas, Christina. I had a Christina who was a different Christina. I said, oh, I'm going to see you Saturday. And she goes, no, you're not. I go, oh, let me check. I got to get my booking page to put people's last names first. because of
Last
that. I
names,
got,
yes.
my booking page just puts you as Christina. So I got a Christina Hensey and I got a Christina Walters. So I will see you.
There's a special Christina.
There you go. There you go. So remember, inch by inch, options are cinch. Yard by yard,
by
options
yard.
are hard. And I'll see you for advanced options. I'll put it up, Ethan. I'll probably try and put it up next week some point.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you.
My
night.
pleasure. See everybody later. Bye-bye.